A quick service announcement before we begin today's usual predictions video. Unfortunately, Craig has had to take a step back from the podcast, so for the time being, you're going to have to put up with just me. Hopefully, I won't drive you insane during these videos, and I'm going to get you guys a bit more involved too. It's finally back after the international break. Albeit most of these games are taking place on the same day and just a few hours before the England World Cup quarter-final. It's matchday 22 of the Championship, and for everyone apart from Sunderland and Millwall fans, it is a first game for 4 weeks in the EFL Championship. We'll get to our matchday 22 predictions in a minute, but first and foremost, let's start with a recap of what happened last time out. And unfortunately, it wasn't very good. I got 7 points across the 12 games in the final full match day before the internationals. That was 2 perfect scores, including a late equaliser for Luton, who were managerless at the time against Rotherham. Craig, just the 2 perfect outcomes, no perfect scores. So 7 points to 2 was the score in that weekend. However, the one game last week was Sunderland versus Millwall. Craig correctly predicted a Sunderland win, and he wins that match day by 1 point to 0. But let's move on to a full fixture list, starting with Saturday lunchtime. There's a few fixtures that may yet change time, so if they're not in the same order as usual, you'll have to forgive me. A lot of them move in earlier for the England evening game. And we start with a Lancashire Derby. It is Blackburn versus Preston, a 12 p.m. kickoff on Sky. Both sides went into the international break with a defeat, Blackburn losing 3-0 away at Burnley and Preston 4-2 at home to Millwall. While of course it was an incredibly disappointing result for Blackburn, away in the derby, another one coming up is the perfect chance to rectify the wrong. Preston, probably one of their worst defensive performances of the season, and they themselves against Blackpool a few weeks ago had a real trouble in the derby. It ended a run of 3 wins against Millwall. It wasn't the best performance, but Blackburn, the second best home team in the league, Preston, the second best away record in the league. This one is going to be an incredibly tight game. I can't see it being a big high-scoring match as we've seen in some of their other derbies this year. So for me, I think Preston are probably going to try and stifle Blackburn. It's just about whether they can get the breakthrough with the attacking talent they've got. I'm going to go for the Championship's favourite scoreline to start with. Nothing's changing here. I'm sitting on the fence with a 1-1 draw. Next up is Rotherham versus Bristol City, the first of the current scheduled 12:30 games. Rotherham, we'll start with them. They drew 1-1 at Luton in the final game before the international break, and I was there. They had a dream start. They scored within about 30 seconds. First attack, and they were 1-0 up. And Luton, who were obviously managerless just after Nathan Jones had left for Southampton, did make it a slightly easier start for them with a slightly nervy atmosphere in the air. Rotherham, as you would expect, defended really well, tried to stay in the game, as they have so often with a lead this year. And given the week they had before that World Cup break, a 1-0 win at Sheffield United and a 1-1 draw at Luton, albeit they'll be disappointed not to hang on. A really good couple of results for them. For Bristol City, a 0-0 draw at home to Watford, a rare clean sheet for them as well. And what was even more impressive is they restricted Watford to virtually nothing. No shots on target for them. Bristol City edged it, but without being too potent going forward. So Nigel Pearson perhaps under a little bit of pressure. Rotherham will be looking for a big home win. I'm not sure where to go with this one because Rotherham have been better at home, but they lost their last one against Norwich. It's the only one of their last 6 that was at home. I'm going to go for them to nick a winner here. Rotherham by 2-1. Bristol City won't keep 2 clean sheets in a row. And given their largely awful away form this year, I'm going to go for Rotherham to nick it. 2-1 to the Millers. Next up is the 2 p.m. kickoff between Reading and Coventry City. Coventry grateful to be away from home given the circus surrounding their stadium at the minute. And on the pitch, things were going really well. 4 wins in a row without conceding a goal against some very good sides and promotion contenders in the likes of QPR, Watford and Blackburn in that run. And Reading, they went into the international break with a crucial win as well. They'd gone 4 without a win before that whole game, but they managed to bounce back in style. It was a good result. It was a gritty away win, and that will stand them in good stead for the rest of the year. Albeit, it took a 94th minute own goal, but we'll gloss over that for now. The key for this one really is whether Reading's direct style is going to be able to break down Coventry. When they do let in a goal, they generally let in more than one, but they've been so solid and so consistent in recent weeks. I can only see them flying up the table. Of course, the ground situation will be a worry when we get to their next home game, but with Coventry flying, with Reading in poor form prior to that whole game, I am going to go for Coventry to nick it. I don't think it'll be the prettiest game. I don't think it'll be the highest scoring. I'm going to go by 1-0. Coventry City win. Next up, the first of the current 3 p.m. kickoffs is Blackpool versus Birmingham City. Blackpool on the back of 4 defeats in a row. They lost at Wigan despite an early red card and then taking the lead in that game at the DW Stadium. But unfortunately, it was just too long with 10 men and they were pegged back in the end. And of course, Wigan, one of those sides that would have been expecting to get a result against. Second bottom at the moment, Blackpool. We did predict them for relegation in pre-season, and it is starting to look a bit tricky for them. 5 goals conceded in their last 2 games. And add to that they've got the second worst home record in the league. This might be a tricky day for them. Birmingham, pretty disappointing result against Sunderland. They were the Friday night TV game in the last week before the World Cup. Again conceded 2 goals as they did against Swansea. But it will be buoyed by the fact they created chances. They had 22 shots in that game, an awful lot of the ball. And they are playing pretty well this season and performing a lot better than people expected. They were 4 unbeaten prior to that. They were scoring goals, but it's just about taking chances. Blackpool, I feel, are going to have to try and be a bit more cautious, try not to concede an early goal. But I'm going to go for Birmingham to nick it. I think they'll score 2 because the Blackpool defence has been shaky. And given their home record, combined with Birmingham's good away one, I'm going to go for a 2-0 win for Birmingham City. Next up is Middlesbrough versus Luton Town. 2 sides with playoff aspirations and 2 sides with pretty new managers. Middlesbrough absolutely flying under Michael Carrick. Back-to-back wins against Blackpool and Norwich with lots of goals and lots of attacking quality before the break. And Luton Town, now with Rob Edwards, the man who started the season in charge of rivals Watford. They drew 1-0 at home to Rotherham. That game was under Mick Harford. But only 1 win in 6 for Luton. 3 wins in 4 for Middlesbrough. I've talked about it in the manager special. Middlesbrough look an absolutely brilliant side under Carrick, and we thought his coaching was going to work out for them. They've got the January window coming where they can add a bit more attacking depth if they wish, but at the moment, they don't really look like anyone can stop them. It was a tricky day for Luton there last season. We'll be waiting to see whether they stick with the tactics played under Nathan Jones or whether Rob Edwards immediately tries to put an impact on the side. He did suggest he was going to stick with a tried and trusted for now, so I think Luton will probably set up the same tactically, very similar to the formation Middlesbrough play anyway. But as much as I want to use my Luton hat and put the bias in this game, I don't think I can. Middlesbrough firm favourites for me. I'm going to go for them to win by 2-1. Next up is probably one of the home bankers on paper of the weekend, or what would have been until about a week ago. Millwall versus Wigan Athletic is the game. Millwall lost 3-0 to Sunderland last weekend after a brilliant win going into the World Cup break against Preston. And Wigan got that win against Blackpool under interim management and now surprised everyone by appointing Kolo Touré as their new manager. We did the manager special last week, which you can find up in the eye above. But I really don't know what to predict for this game now. Millwall, one of the best home teams in the league. They've won 7 of their 10 this year, only conceded 7 goals, the joint least after Coventry, who have obviously played less games. And Wigan have been so much better on the road this year. Whether that will change under Touré, you don't know, but they're very strong on the counter-attack. They've got the 6th best away record in the Championship, which is remarkable for a side that are scrapping against relegation. They had lost 4 of their last 5 prior to that Blackpool game, and when they took the lead with 10 men Blackpool, you just wondered if Wigan were going to have the confidence or the ability to come back. But they found 2 goals, they got a key victory, and maybe that will start the run for them. They probably didn't want a break after that, but they've had some work with Kolo Touré now. We don't really know how he's going to set up, having worked under so many brilliant managers. So despite my little bits of doubt, I'm going to stick with the safe bet, which is a Millwall win, 2-0. Wigan don't have a massive attacking threat. They often go games without scoring. They did so against Coventry, Stoke and Watford in their last 5 games. And I'm going to bank on that happening again. 2-0 to Millwall and defeat for Kolo in his first game in charge. Next up, we've got a Yorkshire Derby as Sheffield United face Huddersfield. Sheffield United bounced back from defeat against Rotherham with a 1-0 win at Cardiff in their last game. Huddersfield drew 0-0 at home to Swansea. They are, of course, at risk of getting marooned at the bottom of the league. They're on 19 points from 20 games, but 4 points in the last week before the break really would have given them some extra confidence. That Swansea draw backed up a really good win at Queen's Park Rangers, and they probably would have been happy with that. For Sheffield United, it's all about the title charge. Back up to second place, 3 points off Burnley at the top, who are the only side yet to have a wobble. And I just feel that my pre-season title favourites are going to be up there. They've got a goal threat. I know Ndiaye has been away playing for Senegal. Whether he'll be back having played against England last week, I'm not too sure. but they've still got loads of quality, loads of attacking depth. McBurney's been in great form in recent months, Ryan Brewster's shown glimpses of his brilliance, and Sander Berger has been one of the stars of the Championship in the last month or two. A really good away display last time, but at home, the onus is on them to attack. They've only won half of their home games this season, Sheffield United, but they are the second top scorers at their home ground. And unfortunately, Huddersfield are brittle in defence. They've been awful on the road. 5 points from 9 games. I can't see that changing. I'm going for a big win. It's always a bit unpredictable. It's basically after another pre-season, this, isn't it? But I'm going to go for 3-0 to Sheffield United. I think they'll have a really comfortable day. And the next game is Stoke City versus Cardiff City. Stoke, who have been stuttering under Alex Neil, fell to defeat at West Brom, who are flying under Carlos Corberán in fairness. But their recent record of win-loss makes them a very hard side to predict. Cardiff, who have now given Mark Hudson a job to the end of the year, very similar pattern to what happened with Steve Morrison last season. Back-to-back defeats into the break. 3-2 at home to Hull was the most costly one, but then that 1-0 at home to Sheffield United, where they were second best, let's be brutally honest. It's going to be a really difficult game, this, and you could argue whoever loses it is in real relegation trouble. Cardiff in 19th, Stoke City in 17th, 1 point separating them, and they're 1 and 2 points above the relegation zone. This is a really crucial game. You don't want to be getting dragged into that mix over the festive season. Stoke, I've not been convinced by for most of this year. Both sides conceding a lot of goals. But I'm only going to edge Cardiff on the fact that they've been able to grind out 1-0s this year. They've not been great on the road, but the 3 games they have won, they've been gritty. They've been able to defend their lead. So I'm going to go for Cardiff to score an early goal, then frustrate the home crowd. 1-0, Cardiff City, the perfect away win. And the final game on Saturday is Swansea City versus Norwich City. Swansea now 5 without a win, albeit they only lost 1 of those, but they played 5 sides that were probably expected to finish in the bottom half, and I think they'll be really disappointed with the results. Yes, it was a big positive that they managed to pick up a clean sheet at Huddersfield, albeit they're a side struggling at the bottom, but again, lots of possession, not a huge amount of cutting edge, and in the games previous, it was just the same old defensive errors. For Norwich, it looked good early doors against Middlesbrough. 1-0 up early through Josh Sargent, who's obviously then gone off to the World Cup. But again, pegged back, again, a little bit too brittle at the back. And after a run where they looked a little better for 4 games, the pressure is going to mount on Dean Smith again. It's a game for Norwich where they've probably got to start winning soon. There is that little gap to the top, 9 points to Burnley, 6 to Sheffield United in second. And for Swansea, they're still up in that playoff mix. 5 without a win and still level on points with QPR. It's a testament to the season they've had so far, in fairness. But for me, I think we know the pattern of this game. Swansea will keep the ball. Norwich will hit on the counter. I'm not sure it'll be a vintage game to watch, but I'm going to go for 2-1 to Norwich, and Swansea will go 6 without a win. On to Sunday, and we start with a TV game at lunchtime. It's managerless QPR after Mick Beale left for Rangers. We'll wait to see who the replacement is there. Versus very much a manager in demand in Vincent Kompany's Burnley. He's been linked with a Belgium job after their World Cup disappointment, and they went into the international break with a stunning 3-0 win against Blackburn. One of the most complete Championship performances of the season, albeit Blackburn didn't offer enough in that derby, but really disciplined defensively, made sure they didn't get red cards, give away silly fouls, and then aggressive, pressing high, and brilliant counter-attacking football on the front foot. It was a vintage performance. It's probably exactly what Vincent Kompany wanted from that side, and that was the perfect way for them to go into the World Cup break. For QPR, a complete contrast to that. Since Mick Beale turned down the Wolves job, they went on a run without a win. 4 of the last 5 they've lost. They've only scored 1 goal in those 5 games. That was against bottom side Huddersfield. They were awful against Coventry. 1 shot on goal. Coventry very much deserving winners. And now Mick Beale has left the loyalty club. He's decided to go to Rangers after talking about how loyal he was. And I know a few QPR fans aren't happy with that. We'll of course wait and see who turns up in charge. Neil Critchley being linked and a few other surprise names popping into the mix now. There'll be a manager special whenever that happens. But for this game, I know that you could say the interim manager might produce a bounce. But for me, I think Burnley are sure winners of this game. 2-0 I'm going to go for away from home. They've only lost 2 away games all season. And QPR, you just can't predict a win at the minute. You don't know where the next one's coming from. So 2-0 Burnley. Will Vincent Kompany leave though? That must be starting to worry Burnley fans. And the second game on Sunday is Watford versus Hull City. Watford went into the international break with a 0-0 draw away at Bristol City, a game in which they didn't even muster a shot on target. But in fairness to them, 4 wins out of 5 in the games prior to that. Only that one blotch on the record at home to Coventry, and they are starting to look pretty good and pretty solid under Slaven Bilic. 2 goals conceded in 6. That is probably the biggest statistic given some of their form in the month before that. Ismaila Sarr had been starring for Senegal in the World Cup. I wonder if he's going to be there at the end of January, but he should be back for this one. It will have been 7 days since the last game, so hopefully for Watford's sake, he'll be in the team. Hull City just starting to take shape under Liam Rosenior. Good draw at Millwall, good win at Cardiff, but disappointment at home to Reading. Probably happier to be on the road given their recent form this season. They're actually a mid-table side in their away form. Watford have been pretty good at home though, the odd 1-0 defeat, but generally they are blowing teams away. I'd fancy them to do the same against Hull. Both teams have had a month to work with their relatively new head coaches, but you've got to predict Watford to come out on top in this. I still think they might concede the odd goal, but I'm going to go 3-1 to Watford. Hull City will continue to be in a relegation scrap. And then on to the one game on Monday night, Sunderland versus West Bromwich Albion. Sunderland absolutely brilliant last weekend in a 3-0 win against Millwall. Ellis Sims back to fitness, they've got a centre forward and a focal point fit. Ross Stewart not too far behind him, and they looked a real threat. Absolutely brilliant display, making it 3 wins in 4 for Tony Mowbray's side. With the January window to come, if they can just add 1 or 2 bits of magic, they could have a very good season and maybe even yet a playoff push. West Brom starting to look great under Corberan as well. We talked about it in the manager special. I know that the West Brom fans want to see exciting football, but for now it's about getting the job done. He's not got a group of players that will allow him to work really expansively, so he's got to get through to January with results, and they've been doing that. 3 wins in a row, 3 clean sheets in a row. Mightily impressive given their defensive record this year. And Corberan is doing exactly what he did at Huddersfield. Whether that can continue at the Stadium Alight with a buoyant Sunderland side, I don't know. 2 teams in very good form, both got an attacking threat, both a little shakier at the back despite their improved records recently. So I'll finish with the Championship's favourite scoreline, Sunderland 1, West Brom 1. So let's have a quick recap of my predictions for this weekend's action. Of course, a very difficult one. Returning from the World Cup after 4 weeks off, you've got no idea what to expect really. So I've largely gone to form and gone for the teams that have great home records. The likes of Millwall, Sheffield United and Watford also very comfortably win. Few surprise little away wins, and I've bookended the episode with 2 Championship's favourite scorelines. The first one, the Lancashire Derby, and the last one, Sunderland v West Brom. So those are my predictions. Do you agree with me or disagree with me? Let me know in the comments section down below, and let us know your predictions for matchday 22. Anyone who beats my record down in the comments will get a shout out in the next episode. Thank you for watching as always. If you did enjoy the episode, please do put a thumbs up on it. Subscribe down below for Championship score predictions every match day here on the podcast. You can support the show as a member by clicking the join button down below too. But thank you for watching as always. I'll see you again next time.